the Alpha rejected me. But he didn't know I have already accepted his greatest enemy as my mate. What happens when rejection comes too late? And what will the Alpha do when he discovers who has already become her mate? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Before we begin, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another story of fate, heartbreak, courage, and unexpected love. Thank you for spending your time with us and for continuing to support the stories we share. Before we enter tonight's tale, tell us in the comments, if someone rejected you and later regretted that choice, would you ever give them another chance? Now settle in and follow closely, because this story begins at the moment one Alpha believes he is ending a bond, unaware that another choice has already been made. You are not the woman I will choose. Alpha Ethan Caldwell's voice carried across the Moon Hall so clearly that Claire Bennett heard someone in the back row stop breathing. She stood beneath the open skylight with silver moonlight falling across her simple white ceremonial dress, surrounded by nearly 300 members of Silver Ridge Pack. For 6 years, Claire had imagined this night differently. She had imagined Ethan reaching for her hand. She had imagined the pack cheering when their Alpha finally acknowledged the bond everyone knew existed between them. Instead, Ethan stood 12 feet away on the raised stone platform, wearing the dark formal coat of Silver Ridge leadership, his expression controlled enough to make the moment feel almost rehearsed. Vanessa Whitmore stood several steps behind him in a midnight blue gown, her father beside the senior counsel. Claire noticed that detail. She noticed everything now. Claire Bennett, Ethan continued, I reject you as my mate. The words entered her quietly. There was no thunder. No dramatic collapse. Just a sudden pressure beneath her ribs, followed by a strange emptiness where something familiar had lived for years. Around her, whispers began like wine through dry leaves. Claire kept her hands at her sides. Ethan watched her closely. Perhaps he expected tears. Perhaps he expected her to ask why. She would not give him either. Do you understand? He asked. Claire looked at the man she had once trusted more than anyone in Silver Ridge. His blonde brown hair was neatly combed back, his shoulders squared beneath the ceremonial insignia of an Alpha. He looked exactly as powerful as he had always wanted to look. Yet Claire could remember another Ethan, the boy who used to walk her home after evening lessons, the young man who once promised that rank would never matter between them. That memory hurt more than the rejection itself. Someone near the council table whispered, Poor Omega. Another voice answered with a quiet laugh. Claire heard both. She also saw Vanessa lower her eyes to hide the smallest smile. Ethan descended one step from the platform. You may speak. May. The word almost made Claire smile. Even now, he believed this moment belonged entirely to him. Her right hand slipped into the hidden pocket sewn into her dress. Her fingertips touched cool metal. A black ring rested there, heavier than its size suggested, engraved with a silver wolf beneath a crown. She had carried it for 2 weeks. Ethan did not know that. Nobody in Silver Ridge knew. He believed tonight was the moment he decided Claire's future. He believed rejecting her would leave her without a mate, without protection, and perhaps desperate enough to remain quietly useful to the pack that had just humiliated her. Claire raised her eyes to his. For the first time that evening, uncertainty flickered across Ethan's face. She was too calm. He could see it now. Claire? Her wolf stirred inside her, but not toward him. That was the secret Ethan could never have imagined. Somewhere beyond the northern border was another presence, distant yet unmistakable, connected to her by a choice she had already made. Claire closed her fingers around the black ring. 2 weeks earlier, during a storm near Blackwood Territory, a stranger named Nathaniel had placed it in her palm and told her that if she ever needed him, she would know where to go. Ethan thought he was about to make Claire Bennett the rejected Omega of Silver Ridge. He had no idea she had arrived at the ceremony carrying another man's promise. In her pocket. Claire finally spoke. Yes, Alpha Caldwell, she said, her voice steady enough to silence the whispers. I understand perfectly. 6 years earlier, Claire had learned how dangerous hope could be when it arrived disguised as certainty. She had been 18 then, standing outside the Silver Ridge Infirmary with a basket of clean linens balanced against her hip when Ethan Caldwell found her watching the sunset. He had not been alpha yet. His father still led the pack, and Ethan was simply the heir everyone expected to become powerful someday. He had taken the basket from Claire without asking and carried it inside for her. Such a small kindness should not have mattered. To Claire, it had. After that came years of moments she quietly collected. Ethan saving her a seat during winter gatherings. Ethan walking beside her after late shifts at the infirmary. Ethan telling her that Silver Ridge needed people who cared more about others than titles. When the first faint pull of their mate bond appeared, Claire thought those memories finally had a name. She never demanded a public acknowledgement. Ethan always had another reason to wait. First, his father was ill. Then leadership had to be transferred. Then neighboring packs were challenging Silver Ridge trade routes. Claire accepted every explanation because waiting seemed easier when she believed there was something waiting for her at the end. Meanwhile, she built a life around usefulness. She worked mornings at the infirmary, delivered medicine to older pack members who lived miles outside town, and spent 2 evenings each week helping children whose parents worked late. Nobody called those things important. Claire did not need them to. She liked knowing Mrs. Dawson remembered her medication because Claire labeled the bottles in larger letters. She liked hearing children race toward the community room when she arrived with books. She liked being someone people could depend on. But Silver Ridge measured value differently when leadership was involved. Claire had no wealthy family. Her parents had died when she was young, leaving her grandmother Margaret as the only person who never treated Omega as another word for lesser. A title tells you where someone stands, Margaret once told her. It does not tell you who they are. Claire believed that. She thought Ethan did too. The year he became alpha, however, something shifted. Meetings replaced evening walks. Political dinners replaced quiet conversations. Ethan began speaking about alliances, territory, and influence with an urgency Claire had never heard before. When she asked when they would formally acknowledge their bond, he touched her hand and said, "Soon. Trust me." Claire did. That was the mistake she had difficulty admitting even to herself. 3 months before the moon ceremony, Vanessa Whitmore began appearing at Silver Ridge Council dinners. Vanessa was the daughter of Robert Whitmore, a wealthy beta whose family controlled important trade routes connecting 3 neighboring packs. She was polished, educated, and perfectly comfortable among people who discussed marriages as though they were treaties. Claire noticed how often Ethan sat beside her. She noticed council members smiling when Vanessa entered. She noticed Ethan stopped meeting Claire's eyes whenever future leadership was discussed. Still, Claire waited. One evening, after finishing her shift, she found Ethan alone outside the council building. "Are we still what you said we were?" she asked. Ethan looked tired. For a moment, Claire saw the young man who had once carried her basket. "Claire, nothing has changed." "Then why does it feel like everything has?" He did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked toward the illuminated council windows. "I need you to trust me a little longer." Claire nodded because she had already spent 6 years becoming good at waiting. She did not know that inside those council chambers, Ethan had begun discussing a future in which she had no place beside him. Claire discovered the truth by accident on a Thursday evening, 10 days before the moon ceremony. The council meeting should have ended before her shift at the infirmary, but when she crossed the administration building to deliver medicine to Elder Samuel Reed, voices were still carrying through the partially open chamber door. She recognized Ethan. First, Silver Ridge cannot expand without the Whitmore routes. Claire stopped. She had no intention of listening until Robert Whitmore answered. "And my family does not bind its future to uncertainty." "Vanessa must have a recognized position beside you." Claire's fingers tightened around the paper medicine bag. Through the narrow opening, she could see Ethan standing beside a long oak table covered with maps. Vanessa sat near her father, perfectly composed. 3 council elders watched Ethan as though waiting for an answer they already expected. "The moon ceremony solves that," one elder said. Ethan remained silent. Claire felt something cold settle beneath her ribs. Robert leaned back. "There is still the Omega." "Not Claire. Not Miss Bennet. The Omega." Ethan finally spoke. "Claire will not interfere." Vanessa looked toward him. "You sound very certain." "I am." Claire should have walked away. Instead, she remained frozen beside the door. 6 years of promises suddenly felt balanced on the next words from Ethan's mouth. One elder cleared his throat. "The bond complicates matters." Ethan looked down at the maps. "A mate is personal. A Luna is political." Claire forgot the medicine bag in her hands. She had imagined rejection as something loud, perhaps cruel enough to make hatred easy. This was worse. Ethan sounded reasonable. Calm. As if the future they had quietly built together could be separated into columns on a council ledger. Vanessa asked, "And what exactly will you tell her?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "What I need to." Claire stepped backward before anyone could see her. The hallway seemed longer than it had moments earlier. She delivered Elder Reed's medicine, smiled when he thanked her, and somehow finished the rest of her shift without dropping anything. Only when she reached the small cottage she shared with her grandmother did her composure begin to crack. Margaret Bennet sat at the kitchen table beneath a yellow lamp, sorting dried herbs into glass jars. One look at Claire's face made her stop. "What happened?" Claire placed her coat over a chair. "I think Ethan is going to reject me." Margaret did not offer an empty reassurance. That was one of the reasons Claire trusted her. "Do you think it, or do you know it?" Claire repeated what she had heard. When she reached Ethan's sentence about a mate being personal and a Luna being political, Margaret's mouth tightened. "And what are you going to do?" "What can I do?" Claire asked. "He is the alpha." Margaret closed the jar in front of her. "That was not my question." Claire looked down at the silver bracelet around her wrist. Ethan had given it to her on her 19th birthday. She had worn it almost every day since. "I could confront him." "You could." "He would deny it until the ceremony." "Probably." Claire sank into the chair opposite her grandmother. "Then I wait 10 days to be humiliated in front of everyone." Margaret reached across the table and covered Claire's hand. "Or you spend those 10 days remembering that his decision does not determine your worth." The next morning, Claire volunteered to deliver medical supplies to Pine Hollow, a small settlement nearly 40 miles north near the Blackwood border. She told herself she needed distance from Ethan, Vanessa, and the whispers beginning to move through Silver Ridge. She expected a quiet 2-day trip. Instead, dark clouds gathered before noon, and by late afternoon a winter storm had closed the mountain road behind her. Claire reached Pine Hollow just before sunset. Several buildings had lost sections of roofing in the wind, and villagers were rushing to secure windows before the temperature dropped. She parked beside the community clinic and climbed out to help. That was when she noticed the stranger on the roof of an elderly couple's house. He wore a plain black coat, his dark hair damp with melting snow, and he was fastening a protective tarp while 2 local men held the ladder steady. No guards. No insignia. Nothing that explained why everyone seemed to listen when he spoke. He climbed down, thanked the men, then turned toward Claire. His gray eyes met hers across the snowy road. Something inside her went unexpectedly still. The stranger glanced at the medical boxes in her car. "You came through the South Road?" Before it closed. He walked toward her and reached for the heaviest box, but stopped before touching it. "Would you like some help?" Claire stared at him. He had asked. Such a simple thing. "Yes," she said quietly. "Thank you." He lifted the box easily. "Nathaniel." "Claire." He smiled faintly. "Well, Claire, it looks like neither of us is leaving Pine Hollow tonight." By morning, Pine Hollow had disappeared beneath nearly 8 inches of snow. Claire woke in the small room above the community clinic to the sound of shovels scraping the sidewalk below. The storm had weakened, but the mountain road remained closed, and the local radio expected another 24 hours before crews could clear it. She pulled on her boots and went downstairs, expecting to find exhausted villagers waiting for instructions. Instead, the clinic was already organized. Medicine had been sorted by household, hot coffee stood near the front desk, and 3 volunteers were loading blankets onto a truck. Nathaniel stood beside them with a handwritten list in one hand. "The Miller house needs heating fuel before noon," he said. "Mrs. Cooper should not be walking on the ice, so take her groceries directly to the porch." Nobody questioned him, yet he never sounded commanding. When he saw Claire, he handed the list to a volunteer and walked over. "Good morning. Did you sleep?" she asked. "Enough." His eyes moved toward the medical supplies. "You probably know where those are needed better than I do." Claire waited for him to tell her what to do. He did not. "The insulin should go first," she said. "There are 2 refrigerated packages for residents outside town. Then we will start there." An hour later, Claire sat beside Nathaniel in an old 4-wheel-drive truck while snow-covered pines passed outside the windows. He drove carefully along the narrow road, slowing whenever they approached a house. At every stop, people seemed to know him. An elderly man called him Nathaniel and insisted he take coffee. A mother with 2 young children thanked him for repairing their generator the previous winter. Claire began to wonder how often he came to Pine Hollow. "Do you live nearby?" she asked when they returned to the truck. "North of here." "Blackwood territory?" His hands paused briefly on the steering wheel. "Yes." Claire looked out the window. Silver Ridge children grew up hearing stories about Blackwood territory. Ethan described its leadership as controlling and dangerous, especially whenever border negotiations failed. Yet Pine Hollow sat close to Blackwood land, and nothing here resembled the warnings she had heard. "Silver Ridge?" Nathaniel asked. Claire turned. "How did you know?" "Your clinic boxes have the crest." She almost laughed at herself. "Right." He waited, but he did not ask her rank, family, or position. Instead, after another mile, he said, "What do you do when you are not delivering medicine through snowstorms?" Claire opened her mouth and stopped. "I work at the infirmary." "That is what you do for work." His gray eyes remained on the road. "I asked what you do for yourself." The question felt strangely difficult. "I do not know." Nathaniel glanced at her, not with pity but curiosity. "Nothing?" "I read sometimes." "What?" "Old travel books." "Places you want to visit?" Claire smiled faintly. "Places I probably never will." "Why not?" She thought of Silver Ridge. "Ethan." "Duty." 6 years of waiting for a life that had always depended on someone else making a decision. "I suppose I never considered leaving." Nathaniel nodded as though that answer belonged entirely to her and required no correction. By afternoon, Claire noticed other things. He carried boxes without waiting for praise. He remembered villagers' names. When a teenager disagreed with his plan for clearing a blocked driveway, Nathaniel listened and used the boy's better idea. No alpha Claire knew behaved that way. Then again, Nathaniel had never said he was an alpha. At sunset they returned to the clinic, where the power had finally stabilized. Claire found him outside beneath the awning, watching clouds separate above the mountains. "The road might open tomorrow," she said. "Probably." For reasons she did not understand, disappointment touched her. Nathaniel looked toward her wrist. Ethan's silver bracelet had slipped from beneath her coat sleeve. "Someone important?" he asked. Claire covered it instinctively. "Someone I thought was." Nathaniel did not press. "Those are usually the hardest people to stop waiting for." Claire stared at him. "You say that like you know." His expression changed for just a moment, carrying the weight of something she could not name. Leadership teaches you a great deal about people who want something from you. Leadership. Claire caught the word. Before she could ask what he meant, the clouds above Pine Hollow finally opened. Moonlight spilled across the snowy street. Nathaniel turned toward her, and the instant their eyes met, Claire's wolf awakened with a force she had never felt around Ethan. Her breath stopped. Across from her, Nathaniel went perfectly still. For several seconds, neither Claire nor Nathaniel moved. The snowy street seemed to fall away around them, leaving only moonlight, cold air, and the unfamiliar pull inside Claire's chest. Her wolf had recognized Ethan years ago with a quiet warmth, something gradual enough that Claire had mistaken patience for certainty. This was different. Not stronger because Nathaniel demanded anything from her, but clearer because he demanded nothing at all. Claire stepped backward beneath the clinic awning. This cannot be happening. Nathaniel's expression remained controlled, though she could see surprise behind his gray eyes. You feel it too. It was not a question. Claire pressed one hand against her coat, directly above the silver bracelet Ethan had given her. I already have a mate bond. I know. Her eyes snapped toward him. How? Your reaction told me. Nathaniel kept several feet between them. And you have been touching that bracelet every time Silver Ridge comes up. Claire looked down. She had not realized she was doing it. His name is Ethan Caldwell. For the first time since they met, something unreadable crossed Nathaniel's face. It vanished almost immediately. The Alpha of Silver Ridge. Claire stared at him. You know him? I know of him. His answer was careful. Too careful. But Claire's thoughts were moving too quickly to question it. Then you understand why this makes no sense. The moon ceremony is in 9 days. Ethan and I are supposed to formally acknowledge our bond. The words sounded hollow now. Nathaniel studied her. Supposed to? Claire closed her eyes. She could still hear Ethan through the council chamber door. A mate is personal. A Luna is political. He is going to reject me. Saying it aloud made it real in a way Margaret's kitchen had not. Nathaniel did not offer sympathy she had not requested. Did he tell you that? No. I heard enough. Then ask him. Claire almost laughed. You make that sound simple. Truth usually is. People are what make it complicated. She looked at him. And what am I supposed to ask you? Nathaniel's gaze shifted toward the moon. Whatever you need to know. What is this? Claire touched her chest. Why would my wolf respond to you when I already have a bond? I do not know. He answered without hesitation, and Claire believed him. Old records mention rare secondary bonds when an existing connection has never been fully accepted, but I have never seen one. Claire noticed his choice of words. Old records. He spoke as someone accustomed to knowing laws most people never studied. If this is a bond, she said slowly, what happens now? Nathaniel looked directly at her. Nothing you do not choose. Claire blinked. That is it? What did you expect? You are an alpha. The certainty left her mouth before she realized she had said it. Nathaniel went still. Claire could feel it now that her wolf was awake to him, the quiet authority beneath his restraint. You never told me. You never asked. Most alphas make sure everyone knows. A faint smile touched his face. I have noticed. Despite everything, Claire almost smiled back. Then Ethan's bracelet caught the moonlight, and the moment disappeared. I need time. Then take it. Nathaniel stepped away from the awning. The road crews expect the south route open by morning. You can return to Silver Ridge and decide what you want without me standing beside you. Claire frowned. You are leaving? At sunrise. Something inside her tightened unexpectedly. And if I never see you again? Nathaniel reached into his coat, then paused. May I give you something? Again, he asked. Claire nodded. He placed a small black ring in her palm. A silver wolf. Beneath a crown was engraved across its surface. The symbol meant nothing to her, but the metal felt strangely warm against her skin. If you decide you need to find me, take this to any Blackwood border station. Claire looked up. Why would they recognize your ring? Nathaniel's expression became unreadable. They will. He walked toward the guest house across the street, leaving Claire beneath the moon with 2 pieces of metal in her hands. On her wrist rested Ethan's silver bracelet, a promise she had waited 6 years to see fulfilled. In her palm rested Nathaniel's black ring, carrying no promise at all. Only a choice. For the first time, Claire wondered which one weighed more. Claire barely slept. Long after Pine Hollow had gone quiet, she sat beside the narrow window in her room above the clinic with Nathaniel's ring resting on the table and Ethan's bracelet still around her wrist. Moonlight touched both pieces of metal, making them look like answers to 2 different questions. One represented 6 years of waiting. The other represented less than 2 days with a man she barely knew. Choosing between them should have been impossible. Yet Claire slowly understood that she was not choosing between 2 men. She was choosing between 2 versions of herself. With Ethan, she had learned to wait. Wait until his father recovered. Wait until Ethan became alpha. Wait until the pack stabilized. Wait until politics became easier. Wait until he decided she was finally convenient enough to acknowledge. Nathaniel had known her for 48 hours and had asked what she wanted more times than Ethan had in 6 years. Just before sunrise, Claire heard movement outside. She dressed quickly and found Nathaniel beside the clinic loading supplies into a truck. The storm had passed, leaving the mountains bright beneath a pale morning sky. You said you were leaving, she said. Nathaniel turned. I am. Without saying goodbye? I thought giving you space was the point. Claire almost smiled. You are unusually committed to not making decisions for me. Someone should be. The words landed harder than he intended. Claire looked down at Ethan's bracelet. Nathaniel noticed but said nothing. Last night you said the bond does not require anything I do not choose, Claire said. I meant it. Even if I choose Ethan? A pause. Yes. His answer came without resentment. That was when Claire knew. Not because her wolf stirred toward him. Not because fate had placed some invisible thread between them. She knew because Nathaniel was willing to lose her rather than turn destiny into an obligation. Claire slowly unfastened the silver bracelet. For a moment, she remembered Ethan placing it around her wrist on her 19th birthday, promising that one day she would understand why patience mattered. She had spent years treating patience like proof of love. Now she wondered when patience had become permission for someone else to postpone her life. She folded the bracelet into her palm. I heard Ethan discussing Vanessa with his counsel, she said. He intends to reject me at the moon ceremony. Nathaniel's expression hardened slightly. Then he has already made his choice. Yes. Claire looked at him. I think I finally need to make mine. The morning seemed to become very still. Claire, you do not owe me an answer because of what happened under the moon. I know. And you do not know enough about me. Then tell me one thing. Nathaniel waited. If I accept this bond, will you ever use it to decide where I live, what work I do, or who I am allowed to become? His answer was immediate. No, even if my choices embarrass you? A faint warmth entered his gray eyes. I suspect some of them will. Claire laughed softly, surprising herself. Then she became serious again. I cannot promise that I know what this will become. Neither can I. But I can promise that this is my decision. Nathaniel did not step closer. He simply waited. Claire felt the old bond toward Ethan like a distant door she had spent years expecting to open. She could not formally close it until he spoke the rejection, but she no longer needed to stand before it. Her wolf settled, certain in a way Claire had never known. She opened her hand and looked at Nathaniel's black ring. "If this bond is asking me to choose," she said, "then let me choose." Nathaniel's breath slowed. "What are you choosing?" Claire met his eyes. She wanted there to be no misunderstanding, no assumption, no decision made on her behalf. "I accept you as my mate, Nathaniel." For several seconds, he said nothing. Then he inclined his head, not like an alpha receiving obedience, but like a man receiving trust. "And I accept you, Claire." Warmth moved through her, quiet and steady. No thunder. No command. Just certainty. Nathaniel glanced toward the south road. "You should return before the ceremony." "And you?" "I have business north of the border." Claire slipped the black ring into her coat pocket. "Will I see you again?" His gaze rested on her for a moment. "If that is what you want." Hours later, Claire drove back towards Silver Ridge with Ethan's bracelet inside her glove compartment and Nathaniel's ring against her heart. She still did not know why a border station would recognize his symbol. She did not know why villagers treated him like a leader or why he knew ancient mate law. She knew only one thing with absolute clarity. Ethan Caldwell believed the moon ceremony would be the night he decided whether Claire Bennett was worthy of being chosen. He had no idea she was returning home having already chosen for herself. Claire returned to Silver Ridge before sunset, but home no longer felt like the place she had left 2 days earlier. The familiar wooden houses, pine-lined roads, and stone pack hall looked unchanged, yet Claire noticed how differently she moved through them. For years, every road seemed to lead toward Ethan. Now she carried a secret that belonged entirely to her. Nathaniel's black ring remained hidden inside the pocket of her coat. Ethan's silver bracelet stayed in the glove compartment of her car. Claire did not put it back on. Her grandmother noticed immediately. Margaret was standing on the porch when Claire arrived, wrapped in a gray sweater against the cold. Her eyes dropped to Claire's bare wrist. Something happened. Claire carried the medical bag inside before answering. Several things. Over tea, she told Margaret about the storm, Pine Hollow, and Nathaniel. She described the strange second bond and the choice she had made. Margaret listened without interrupting. When Claire finished, her grandmother looked toward the black ring resting on the kitchen table. "And you trust him?" "I trust the way he treated my choices." Margaret considered that. "Sometimes that tells you more about a man than promises do." Claire turned the ring between her fingers. "There is something he did not tell me." "Then eventually you should ask." "I will." Margaret smiled faintly. "Good. Choosing someone does not mean surrendering your questions." The next 8 days passed with an uncomfortable calm. Ethan sent no messages except a formal notice confirming Claire's attendance at the moon ceremony. Vanessa appeared beside him at 2 public council events, and whispers followed Claire through the infirmary corridors. Some people offered sympathy. Others looked at her with the eager curiosity reserved for someone else's humiliation. Claire surprised herself by caring less each day. She worked. She delivered medicine. She read one of her old travel books before bed and marked 3 places she might actually visit someday. At night, she sometimes felt Nathaniel through the new bond, distant but steady somewhere north of Silver Ridge. He never pushed against it. He never demanded her attention. That quiet presence became its own kind of reassurance. On the afternoon of the ceremony, Margaret helped Claire fasten the simple white dress required by tradition. "You do not have to go," she said. Claire looked at herself in the mirror. "Yes, I do." "Why?" "Because Ethan should say it to my face." Margaret nodded. "Then make sure you hear what he says, not what you spent 6 years hoping he meant." Claire slipped Nathaniel's ring into the hidden pocket of her dress. By 8 o'clock, nearly 300 pack members had filled the Moon Hall. The skylight above the central platform stood open to a clear winter sky. Ethan waited beneath it in formal black. Vanessa stood behind him. Claire walked alone down the center aisle. Whispers followed her, but she did not lower her head. When she stopped 12 feet from the platform, Ethan studied her with an expression she could not read. Perhaps he noticed the missing bracelet. Perhaps he simply noticed that she was not afraid. The ceremony began. An elder recited the traditional words about loyalty, bond, and pack. Then Ethan stepped forward. Claire Bennett. Her wolf stirred, but not toward him. Claire felt the black ring through the fabric of her pocket. You are aware that the Alpha must place the future of Silver Ridge above personal attachment. There it was again. Politics dressed as duty. Claire said nothing. Ethan continued, his voice carrying across the hall. For that reason, I reject you as my mate. Pain moved through the old bond, brief and sharp enough to steal Claire's breath, but she remained standing. Ethan watched her, waiting for the reaction he had prepared himself to face. Claire let the silence stretch. Then she reached into her pocket. Her fingers closed around Nathaniel's ring. I understand perfectly, she said. Ethan's shoulders relaxed slightly. He mistook calm for surrender. Claire lifted her chin. And I accept your rejection. The old bond released her like a door finally opening. Somewhere in the hall, someone laughed softly. Another person whispered that Claire had nowhere to go now. Claire almost pitied them. She opened her hand. The black ring caught the moonlight. Near the council table, Elder Samuel Reed suddenly rose from his chair. His face had gone pale. Claire, he whispered. Every nearby voice faded. Ethan followed the elder's stare to the ring in her palm. For the first time that night, the Alpha of Silver Ridge looked uncertain. Where did you get that? Ethan's voice cut through the moon hall before Elder Samuel Reed could say another word. Claire looked down at the black ring resting in her palm. A silver wolf stood beneath a small crown engraved into its surface, the same symbol she had carried for more than a week without understanding why it mattered. Around her, the laughter had disappeared. Even Vanessa's practiced smile was gone. Claire, Elder Reed said carefully, do you know what you are holding? A ring someone gave me. The elder stared at her. That is not simply a ring. Ethan descended the remaining steps from the platform. Give it to me. Claire closed her fingers around it. The movement was instinctive. No murmur traveled through the hall. Ethan stopped several feet away, visibly unaccustomed to hearing that answer from her. I need to examine it. Then ask. His jaw tightened. Claire almost heard Nathaniel's voice in her memory. Nothing you do not choose. Ethan drew a controlled breath. May I see the ring? Claire opened her hand again but did not surrender it. Ethan leaned closer. The moment he recognized the crest, the color changed in his face. Blackwood. The name moved through the crowd in whispers. Claire felt her pulse quicken. She knew Blackwood was the territory north of Pine Hollow. She knew Ethan had argued with its leadership over border policies and trade agreements. What she did not understand was why Nathaniel possessed something capable of silencing an entire pack hall. Vanessa stepped forward. That symbol belongs to the royal house. Claire looked at her. Royal house? Elder Reed answered quietly. The black wolf beneath the silver crown is a personal seal of Blackwood authority. Very few people outside the royal household are permitted to carry one. Claire remembered Pine Hollow. Nathaniel repairing a roof with his own hands. Nathaniel delivering groceries. Nathaniel asking permission before taking a box from her car. None of it fit the image forming around the ring. Ethan's attention returned to Claire. Who gave this to you? She could have lied. She did not. Nathaniel. Ethan went completely still. Vanessa looked sharply toward her father. Elder Reed lowered himself slowly back into his chair. Nathaniel what? Ethan asked. Claire met his eyes. He only gave me his first name. Where did you meet him? Pine Hollow. When? Claire felt something old and familiar in Ethan's questions, the expectation that she owed him every detail because he had asked. Only minutes earlier, he had publicly severed their bond. Yet he still spoke as though her life remained part of his authority. Why does it matter? Because Blackwood is not a place you wander into without consequences. I delivered medicine to people who needed it. Ethan stepped closer. And this Nathaniel simply handed you a royal seal? Claire looked around the hall. Everyone was listening now. The same people who had whispered pity when Ethan rejected her were suddenly waiting for her answer. She thought of the snowy morning outside the clinic. She thought of Nathaniel standing several feet away, refusing to claim anything she had not freely offered. Claire slipped the ring onto her finger for the first time. It fit perfectly. He gave it to me after I made a choice. Ethan's expression hardened. What choice? Claire felt the new bond inside her, quiet but unmistakable. She no longer needed to hide it. I accepted him as my mate. Silence fell so completely that Claire could hear the winter wind moving beyond the open skylight. Vanessa stared at Ethan. Elder Reed closed his eyes as if some terrible calculation had finally become clear. Ethan looked at Claire as though he had misunderstood the language she was speaking. That is impossible. Apparently not. You had a bond with me. A bond you just rejected. Ethan's composure finally cracked. Who is he? Claire opened her mouth, but a deep horn sounded beyond the walls of Silver Ridge. Once. Then twice. Every elder in the room turned toward the main doors. Ethan's face changed instantly. Elder Reed rose again. Royal arrival signal. Outside, horses and vehicles entered the courtyard. Claire felt the bond inside her strengthen with every passing second. She turned toward the doors before anyone announced him. Somewhere beyond them, Nathaniel had arrived. The doors opened before Ethan could issue another question. Cold night air swept into the Moon Hall, carrying the scent of pine and fresh snow, and every conversation died at once. Two men in black formal coats entered first, each wearing the silver crest of Blackwood authority. Behind them came Nathaniel. Claire forgot the room around her for one stunned heartbeat. The man walking toward her was the same man who had carried medicine through Pine Hollow, repaired a roof in freezing weather, and asked permission before touching a box she could barely lift. But tonight a silver crown insignia rested over his dark coat, and the people surrounding him moved with the unmistakable discipline of a royal escort. Nathaniel's gray eyes found Claire immediately. The bond between them settled warmly inside her, answering a question she had not known how to ask. Elder Reed bowed first. Others followed almost instantly. Alpha King Nathaniel Blackwood, he said. Claire stared at Nathaniel. Alpha King. The words rearranged every memory she had of him. His knowledge of ancient mate law. The villagers who trusted him. His careful answer when she asked where he lived. The ring. Ethan stepped forward, his expression rigid. Your Majesty. Silver Ridge was not informed that you intended to attend our moon ceremony. Nathaniel stopped several feet inside the hall. I did not come for the ceremony. His gaze returned to Claire. Ethan noticed. So did everyone else. Then why are you here? Ethan asked. Nathaniel's expression remained calm. Royal business. Claire felt a flicker of confusion. He had not come for her. Strangely, that reassured her. Nathaniel had promised not to make her choice about his authority, and even now he was keeping that promise. Ethan glanced toward the ring on Claire's finger. Before we discuss royal business, there appears to be a misunderstanding. Nathaniel's eyes cooled. Does there? Claire Bennett claims you gave her that seal. I did. Another silence. She also claims she accepted you as her mate. Ethan emphasized the word claims. Nathaniel looked at Claire instead of answering. Did you tell him that? Yes. Was it your choice to tell him? Claire understood what he was doing. Even here, before hundreds of people, he would not speak over her. Yes. Nathaniel nodded once. Then there is no misunderstanding. Vanessa shifted behind Ethan. Her father whispered something to a council member. Ethan's voice lowered. She was bonded to Silver Ridge when you met her. Claire was bonded to you, Nathaniel corrected. Those are not the same thing. Ethan's face tightened. She was my intended mate. And yet I arrived in time to hear that you rejected her. A few people lowered their eyes. Ethan looked toward Claire as though expecting her to explain herself. She did not. You knew who I was, Claire said too. Nathaniel. It was the question that mattered to her. In Pine Hollow. You knew I was connected to Ethan. I learned enough to understand there was history between you. But you did not tell me who you were. No, Nathaniel did not hide behind an excuse. I should have told you before you accepted the bond. Claire appreciated the admission even while disappointment touched her. Why did you not? Nathaniel glanced around the hall. Because most people meet the crown before they meet me. In Pine Hollow, you did not. He paused. That does not make withholding it fair to you. Claire held his gaze. He had made a mistake and named it without asking her to forgive it. That mattered. Ethan gave a humorless laugh. This is remarkable. You meet her for 2 days, conceal your identity, and now expect Silver Ridge to accept this? Nathaniel finally turned toward him. I expect nothing concerning Claire from Silver Ridge. Ethan stiffened. She is a member of my pack. Then perhaps you should ask her whether she wishes to remain one. Ethan opened his mouth, but Nathaniel lifted one hand. Not yet. I said I came on royal business. One of the Blackwood officials stepped forward carrying a sealed leather folder. Nathaniel placed it on the council table. For 3 months, the Crown has been reviewing missing resources assigned to the northern border settlements. Robert Whitmore suddenly became very still. Nathaniel continued. Tonight, that review reached Silver Ridge. Claire looked from Robert to Ethan. Vanessa's face had lost its color. Nathaniel's voice remained quiet. The problem is not simply where the resources went. His eyes settled on Ethan. It is what someone intended to purchase with them. Claire watched Robert Whitmore's hand tighten around the back of his chair. Until that moment, the Whitmore family had seemed untouchable inside Silver Ridge. Their money supported businesses, their trade routes connected neighboring territories, and their name opened doors Claire had never been invited to approach. Now Robert looked at the sealed folder as though it contained something capable of closing every one of them. Nathaniel opened it without hurry. 6 months ago, the Crown approved emergency funding and supplies for Pine Hollow and 4 other northern settlements. Heating equipment, medicine, building materials, and winter food reserves were assigned through Silver Ridge because your territory controls the southern transportation corridor. Ethan's expression remained carefully neutral. Silver Ridge fulfilled its obligations. Not entirely. Nathaniel removed several documents. Nearly 30% of those resources never reached the settlements. A restless murmur moved through the hall. Claire thought of Pine Hollow beneath 8 inches of snow. She remembered the damaged roofs, the aging generator, and families sharing supplies while waiting for roads to reopen. Nathaniel continued. The missing shipments were redirected through companies connected to Whitmore Trade Holdings. Robert finally spoke. Administrative errors happen during winter distribution. They do, Nathaniel said. Which is why we checked the financial records before coming here. Another Blackwood official placed a ledger beside the folder. Vanessa looked toward her father. What records? Robert did not answer her. Nathaniel turned one page. Payments connected to the redirected supplies were transferred into accounts supporting a proposed alliance between Silver Ridge and 3 Western packs. Ethan stepped forward. That alliance is legal. An alliance is legal. Funding it with resources intended for border families is not. The room became silent again. Claire looked at Ethan and suddenly remembered the map spread across the council table 10 days earlier. Silver Ridge cannot expand without the Whitmore routes. The sentence returned with painful clarity. That is what you were buying, she said softly. Ethan's eyes moved to her. Claire, this does not concern you. The words were familiar enough to almost make her laugh. Nathaniel did not intervene. He simply looked at Claire, leaving the choice to continue with her. I heard you discussing the Whitmore routes, she said. You said Silver Ridge could not expand without them. Ethan's face hardened. You were listening outside a private council meeting? I was delivering medicine. And misunderstood what you heard. Claire felt the old instinct to retreat, to apologize for standing somewhere important people believed she did not belong. Then she remembered Pine Hollow. Did I misunderstand when you said a mate was personal and a Luna was political? Vanessa turned sharply toward Ethan. Robert closed his eyes for half a second. Ethan said nothing. That silence answered more than denial could have. Claire finally saw the whole shape of it. Vanessa was not merely the woman Ethan preferred beside him. Her family was the bridge to the expansion he wanted. Rejecting Claire had cleared the position of Luna for an alliance already being negotiated. Vanessa stared at Ethan. You told me your bond with her had faded. Claire looked at her, surprised. Vanessa's voice was quieter now. You said the moon ceremony was a formality. Ethan glanced around the hall as control slipped away from him piece by piece. This is PAC business. It should not be discussed publicly. Nathaniel closed the ledger. The moment public resources disappeared, it became Crown business. He did not threaten Ethan. He did not need to. Until the review is complete, Silver Ridge expansion agreements are suspended. Whitmore-controlled transportation contracts involving royal resources will undergo independent audit. Robert began to protest, but Nathaniel raised a hand. You will have every opportunity to provide records and testimony. Judgment will follow evidence. Claire watched him carefully. This was the same man she had seen listening to a teenager's better idea about clearing a driveway. Power had not changed his manner. It had only revealed how much of it he had been choosing not to display. Ethan looked toward Claire again. Whatever happens with this investigation, you remain Silver Ridge. Claire felt something inside her settle. Nathaniel turned toward Ethan. That is not your decision. Ethan's eyes flashed with frustration. I am her alpha. Nathaniel looked at Claire, then back at him. You rejected her as your mate in front of this entire pack. If you want to know whether she still recognizes your authority, there is a very simple way to find out. Ethan frowned. Nathaniel stepped aside, leaving nothing between Ethan and Claire. Ask her. For the first time that night, Ethan Caldwell had no answer ready. He stood beneath the silver light of the Moon Hall while nearly 300 members of Silver Ridge waited for him to do the one thing he had apparently forgotten how to do with Claire. Ask. His gaze moved from Nathaniel to her, then to the black ring on her finger. Claire, he finally said, do you intend to leave Silver Ridge? The question reached her without the force it once would have carried. Claire looked around the hall she had known most of her life. She saw nurses from the infirmary, families whose children she had helped, elders whose medicine she had delivered through rain and snow. Leaving them was not the same as leaving Ethan. That distinction mattered. I have not decided where I will live, she said. But I have decided something else. Ethan waited. Claire lifted her chin. I will not remain anywhere because someone believes my rank makes my choices less important. A murmur passed through the crowd. Ethan lowered his voice. This is your home. It was my home when you decided I was suitable to wait for you but not suitable to stand beside you. His expression tightened. I was protecting the pack. Were you? Claire asked quietly. She glanced toward the financial records on the council table. Ethan followed her eyes and said nothing. Claire did not need to humiliate him. The documents were doing what anger never could. They were making him face the difference between duty and ambition. Vanessa stepped away from her father and approached the center of the hall. Her composure had returned, but something colder had replaced her earlier confidence. I want my name removed from every proposed mating agreement with Silver Ridge. Robert Whitmore stared at his daughter. Vanessa. You told me this alliance was legitimate. This is not the place. Vanessa looked at Ethan. And you told me Claire understood what was happening. Claire felt an unexpected ache for her. Vanessa had benefited from the arrangement, but she had also been given a version of the truth designed to make cooperation easier. Ethan looked between both women and seemed to realize that neither was standing where he had placed her. Nathaniel remained silent beside Claire. He had enough authority to end the discussion with a sentence, yet he did not use it. That silence told Claire more about him than the crown insignia ever could. Elder Reed cleared his throat. Under Silver Ridge law, a pack member may formally request release from territorial allegiance after a severed mate bond. Ethan's eyes returned to Claire. You would leave everything you know for a man you met days ago? There it was. Not a question about what she wanted, but an attempt to make her choice sound foolish. Claire touched Nathaniel's ring. I am not leaving for him. Nathaniel's gray eyes softened slightly. I am leaving the version of myself who believed waiting for your approval was loyalty. Ethan looked as though the words had reached somewhere his pride could not protect. 6 years, he said quietly. You would throw away 6 years? Claire almost smiled, though there was sadness in it. No. I am finally accepting what those 6 years taught me. She turned toward Elder Reed. I request release from Silver Ridge allegiance. The elder looked to Ethan because tradition required the alpha's acknowledgement. Every face in the hall followed. Ethan could delay the process, but doing so before the Alpha King, during an investigation into his own leadership, would reveal exactly what Claire had accused him of becoming. His shoulders slowly lowered. Request acknowledged. Claire exhaled. Something invisible seemed to loosen around her. Nathaniel stepped forward only after the decision was hers. Claire Bennett. She turned toward him. You accepted me before knowing my title, he said. Now that you know it, you deserve another choice. Claire's heartbeat slowed. What choice? Nathaniel removed the silver royal insignia from his coat and placed it on the council table. Then he stood before her simply as the man she had met in Pine Hollow. Whether you still accept Nathaniel when the crown is no longer hidden. Claire studied him for a long moment. I am angry that you did not tell me. You should be. I will have questions. Ask everyone. And I will not become someone decorative who stands beside a throne and stays quiet. The faintest smile touched his face. I would be disappointed if you did. Claire looked at the man who had given her room to choose even when the answer might have cost him everything he wanted. Then she extended her hand. In that case, my answer has not changed. Nathaniel took her hand gently. No command followed. No royal declaration. Yet across the Moon Hall, one by one, the whispers stopped, because everyone understood what Ethan finally did. Claire Bennett had not been taken from him by his greatest enemy. Ethan had simply rejected a woman who had already learned that being chosen meant nothing if she was never allowed to choose herself. The Moon Hall did not erupt after Claire made her choice. Somehow, the silence was more powerful. For years, she had imagined justice as something loud, a moment when everyone who had underestimated her would finally be forced to admit they were wrong. Standing beside Nathaniel, she discovered that justice could be quieter than that. It could sound like her own steady breathing after years of holding it. Elder Reed gathered the documents from the council table and addressed the room. Until the royal review is complete, Silver Ridge will appoint an independent council to oversee all public resources and northern relief shipments. Ethan's expression changed, but he did not object. Robert Whitmore did. You cannot dismantle agreements built over generations because of one investigation. Nathaniel looked toward him. Nothing is being dismantled without evidence. The records will be reviewed, the people involved will be heard, and responsibility will follow the facts. Robert opened his mouth again, but Vanessa touched his arm. Father. There was no affection in the warning. Only exhaustion. Robert finally fell silent. Claire watched Nathaniel and understood something she had missed in Pine Hollow. His strength was not that everyone obeyed him. It was that he did not need fear to prove he possessed authority. Nathaniel turned toward Ethan. Silver Ridge will remain under your leadership during the review unless evidence requires otherwise. Your people should not suffer because their leaders made questionable decisions. Ethan seemed almost surprised. Perhaps he had expected humiliation in return for humiliation. You are showing me mercy? He asked. Nathaniel's face remained calm. No. I am showing your pack fairness. Claire felt those words settle through the hall. Even Ethan lowered his eyes. Then Nathaniel looked at her. There is one more matter. Claire waited. Your release has been acknowledged, but Blackwood law does not automatically make you part of my kingdom because you accepted our bond. Ethan glanced up sharply. Claire understood immediately. Nathaniel was giving her another choice. What does the law require? She asked. Your consent. Publicly given, without obligation from the mate bond or from me. Claire almost laughed softly. You really have a law for everything. A hint of warmth entered Nathaniel's eyes. Several hundred years of complicated wolves will do that. A few nervous laughs moved through the room, breaking the tension for the first time. Nathaniel extended his hand, but he did not reach for hers. Claire Bennett, do you wish to enter Blackwood territory under royal protection while you decide what future you want? Claire stared at his open palm. Not Luna. Not Queen. Not possession. Protection while she decided. Her throat tightened unexpectedly. Yes, she said. I do. Only then did she place her hand in his. His fingers closed gently around hers. Margaret emerged from the crowd and approached them. Claire had almost forgotten her grandmother was there. Margaret looked at Nathaniel with the fearless scrutiny of a woman who had never been impressed by titles. If she comes north with you, she continues her medical work if she wants to. Nathaniel nodded. Of course. She visits whenever she chooses. Of course. And if she decides she dislikes royal life? Nathaniel glanced at Claire. Then I suppose I will spend more time outside palaces. Margaret studied him for another long second. Acceptable. Claire laughed, and the sound felt strange in a hall where she had expected to leave broken. Ethan heard it too. She saw the recognition in his face. He had known Claire for 6 years, yet perhaps he had never realized how rarely she laughed around him anymore. Claire. His voice stopped her as she turned toward the doors. She looked back. Ethan stood alone beneath the open skylight. Vanessa had moved away from him. The council members were gathering the investigation records. Everything he had arranged for this night had changed. Was there ever a moment, he asked quietly, when I could have chosen differently? Claire looked at him for several seconds. There were hundreds. Ethan swallowed. Claire did not say it cruelly. That was what made the truth heavier. Every time I asked you to see me instead of my rank, you had a choice. Every time you asked me to wait, you had another. She turned toward Nathaniel, then paused. I hope the next time someone trusts you, you recognize what they are giving you before you decide what it is worth. Ethan did not answer. Claire walked toward the doors with Margaret on one side and Nathaniel on the other. Outside, the snow had begun again, soft flakes drifting through the courtyard beneath a clear silver moon. A Blackwood vehicle waited near the steps, but Claire stopped before reaching it. Nathaniel. He turned. Yes? Claire looked toward the northern mountains beyond Silver Ridge. When we reach Blackwood, I do not want a ceremony. Nathaniel smiled. Good. Why good? Because tomorrow morning I am supposed to inspect a community clinic that needs another pair of hands. Claire stared at him, then smiled. That sounds more useful. Together they walked into the falling snow, and for the first time in 6 years, Claire was not waiting for someone else to decide where her life would begin. 3 months later, Claire stood outside the new Blackwood Community Clinic with snow melting beneath the first warm sunlight of spring. The building was not a palace. That was exactly why she loved it. Children hurried through the front doors for their morning appointments, older residents sat talking beneath the covered porch, and delivery workers unloaded boxes of medicine from trucks marked for villages that had once waited weeks for supplies. Claire checked the inventory list in her hands and smiled when every shipment matched the request. The royal investigation had uncovered years of careless accounting and deliberate redirection across several trade routes. Robert Whitmore lost control of the royal transportation contracts while an independent council assumed oversight of the missing resources. Vanessa withdrew from the political arrangement and began managing her family's legitimate businesses under new auditing rules. Ethan remained alpha of Silver Ridge, but expansion plans were suspended while he rebuilt the trust his ambition had damaged. Claire heard these things through official reports. She never asked Nathaniel for details about Ethan's personal life. That chapter no longer belonged to her. "You are working on your day off again." Nathaniel's voice came from behind her. Claire turned. He crossed the clinic courtyard wearing a plain dark coat, without guards close enough to make everyone nervous. 3 months had taught her that the crown followed him everywhere even when he preferred to leave its ceremony behind. "I am checking inventory," she said. "That sounds suspiciously like work. And you are supposed to be at a council meeting. It ended early." Claire raised an eyebrow. "You are the Alpha King. Meetings end whenever you say they end. That is an irresponsible interpretation of government." "Is it inaccurate?" Nathaniel considered the question. "Not entirely." Claire laughed. The sound came easily now. She had noticed that change first. Other changes followed. She had moved into a small house less than half a mile from the clinic instead of accepting rooms in the royal residence. Nathaniel had not argued. She traveled twice a month to visit Margaret. She had begun planning medical outreach programs for remote settlements, and one of her old travel books now contained notes beside places she actually intended to see. The mate bond between her and Nathaniel had deepened quietly, without becoming a cage. Some evenings they ate dinner together. Some evenings duty kept them apart. Neither treated distance as rejection. Nathaniel stopped beside her. "There is something I need to ask you." Claire studied him. "That sounds serious." "The Moon Council meets next month." "I know. They expect me to formally name a royal mate." Claire's smile faded slightly. Nathaniel noticed. "Expect," he repeated. "Not require." Claire looked across the clinic courtyard. 3 months earlier, the words royal mate would have frightened her. They still carried weight, but not the kind that crushed her anymore. "What do you want?" she asked. Nathaniel smiled faintly. "You learned my trick. Answer the question." He looked at her for a long moment. "I want you beside me. But I want Claire Bennett beside me, not whatever version of you the court thinks an Alpha King should have." Her throat tightened. "And if I am never interested in becoming a traditional Luna? Then Blackwood will survive the disappointment." Claire smiled. "You make everything sound simple." "No. I simply think difficult things should still begin with clear choices." He extended his hand, palm upward, exactly as he had in the Moon Hall. "Will you stand beside me at the council?" Claire looked at his hand, then placed hers in it. "Yes." Nathaniel's fingers closed gently around hers. "As my mate?" "As Claire first. Always." 1 month later, beneath the same kind of silver moon that had once watched Ethan reject her, Claire entered the Blackwood Council chamber beside Nathaniel. Nobody announced her as the rejected Omega of Silver Ridge. Nobody introduced her as a woman rescued by a king. Nathaniel simply presented her by the title she had chosen for herself, Director of the Northern Community Medical Program and his accepted mate. When the council members rose, Claire did not lower her eyes. Far to the south, Ethan would eventually hear what happened. Perhaps he would remember the woman who had once waited 6 years for him to choose her. Claire hoped he remembered something more important. She had never needed a stronger alpha to prove Ethan wrong. She had needed the freedom to understand that love without choice was only another form of waiting. Nathaniel looked at her beneath the moonlight and quietly asked, "Ready?" Claire squeezed his hand. "I already chose." And this time, when she stepped forward, no one else was deciding where she belonged.